Say what's cracking YouTube? It's your boy 16 to life, and I'm back like I'm on a parole violation. Yard down. Now today we got another interesting guest in the house today. I got the privilege and the honor of having the one, the only G Slim on my show, man. So hey, I appreciate you for tapping in. G Slim, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
My name is Joe G Slim Mitchell out of Inglewood, California. Just got through doing 30 years, 29 a life sentence. Got out, been out for like 2 years now. Just had my first child 2 days ago. So
congratulations, man. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And so you say you done 29 years, huh?
I did 29 years and 8 months.
Wow, man, that's an extremely long time, man. So how has it been for you since you've been out?
It's a little different, but you know, it's all the same. It's different, but it's the same.
Right.
My goal was to be better, so I've been doing better. Got me a couple of jobs, got me a couple of cars, found a woman, and had a child. So all my blessings have been real blessings.
Oh, congratulations, man. And so you say that you from Inglewood. Were you born and raised?
I was born on 81st in New Hampshire. I was raised in Inglewood on 99th Street.
Okay.
Inglewood family. I was blood. Still am. You know, it was a blood.
Right.
You never forget who you are because without knowing how evil you can be, you don't know how good you can get.
Right. And so what was it like growing up there? Like, what year, you was born, or if not that, when did you start, just coming outside, hanging out, stuff like that?
Yeah, I was born in 73.
Okay.
So I'm 49 years old. I started hanging around. I started off as a break dancer and wall tagger like everybody else.
Right. I used to break dance.
Yeah, I went through all the phases. So
right. I used to break dance my damn self.
Yeah. We grew up knowing our first and last names, knowing your mamas and daddies. So
right.
I'm from that. I'm original YG. I'm from that young G generation. So I'm part of the OYG crew, the original young gangsters.
And so, sometimes people ask me, like, how does a person actually, sometimes people ask me, like, how does a person actually determine whether he's going to be a blood or a Crip? Because, nowadays, and they have the YouTube presence, the social media, and sometimes people join gangs according to what they see on television. But of course, for your era, it was way different. So what determines when you was growing up whether you was going to be a blood or a Crip or whatever gang a person chose to be from?
Actually, I grew up in Criphood on 81st in New Hampshire. Or 81st in Vermont. Same thing. It was just a back alley that separated the thing. I went to Lauren Miller Elementary. So my uncles was Crips. My auntie was a Crip. It's just in the early 80s, we moved to Inglewood when I was like 10.
Right.
So ever since then, I've just been hanging out. So all my childhood friends, we all, like I say, we started off just breakdancing and being cool. It was just a neighborhood thing. Inglewood just happened to be the city. Right. So everything just fell in line. I left for a couple of years. I went to go live with my father. I got basically kicked out because I was messing up. So I went to go live with my father in a whole nother country in Germany. Then came back. When I came back, it was everything was different.
And just real quick, what was that experience like, man, for a young black man from America to go live in Germany?
That it was a blessing, but back then I didn't understand the blessing. So, my parents noticed when I was young, I started acting out, start hanging around with my so-called homies then. So they was like, we got a trick for you. So I had did something a little stupid. And they was like, well, we got somewhere to send you. So they sent me down there, to go live with your father, which I really didn't know who my pops was. I didn't really meet my father till like 86. When he came out there to bury my granddaddy. So when I found out he was, living in Germany and all that, I didn't even know what that was. Mm-hmm. Within a year of me actually meeting him, I went and lived with him.
Right. And so earlier you said that it was a blessing. Yeah. Now you being a little older and able to articulate everything a little better and look at things in hindsight. How do you can you elaborate on how it was a blessing? How do you see it as a blessing now?
Back then, I didn't know it was a blessing. It was a safer environment. You know, it
Okay.
was a chance to not maybe have a chance to not go through the things I had to go through just to become a man.
Right.
You know, I could have went to the military. I was playing sports, you know, wrestling and all type of weird stuff, going on trips, going to other countries. I've been to Spain and all type of weird places. You know, caught the train to Berlin for basketball tournaments and stuff
Mm.
like that. I did all type of stuff that normal kids from South Central we don't even know nothing about. You know,
Right.
it's a lot of people that ain't been through. It's a lot of people that don't even have a passport.
Right.
I had passports, you know, all that stuff, stamp passports, you know. So it was a blessing because it was different. He was a military man, so it installed a lot of discipline in me. But I didn't understand the discipline. I didn't start understanding the discipline until I went to prison.
Right. Right. And so back then when you was over there in Spain and stuff, in Germany, was I assume was you longing to come back to Inglewood and hang out?
Man, that's the whole reason why I came back. I got homesick.
Right.
I got home, so I wanted to come back home to be a part of to be a part of what I got a part of.
Mm.
You know, I stepped off the plane and immediately within 3 days I was already in handcuffs doing something
Wow.
stupid. So I
And
stepped off the plane already put my name in the system under a case.
so when you return back to the States, how old were you, and what are the charges that landed you back in handcuffs? As much as you feel comfortable elaborating on it or
Yeah,
not,
no,
it's up
it,
to you.
it wasn't none. It was a juvenile case. I was only 17. You
Uh-huh.
know, it was a juvenile case. I ain't doing disturbing the peace. We out there beating up on some dudes. I'm
Mm.
being stupid, fighting inside of Wendy's.
Uh-huh.
You know, catching somebody so-called slipping. You know, while you in my hood. You know, I
Right.
only been back 3 days. Let alone I
Right.
don't know what's going on out here.
Right.
I'm just following behind my people I didn't grew up with.
Right. And unfortunately, like you mentioned, man, when we're young, sometimes we're impressionable. We're longing to fit in, get a reputation. Um, those are the things sometimes that we end up getting ourselves into. So you said you when you got back, you was already 17. So is that when around the time you found yourself started hanging with the neighborhood gangs and stuff?
That's when I found myself starting to hang out with everybody.
Right.
You know, we got a separated part. I'm from Inglewood family, but I grew up in the Crenshaw Mafia part. But I lived in I lived in the half street. I lived on Crenshaw and Century.
Mhm.
So I grew up in the bottoms. Basically, I hung out in the bottoms. I went and kicked it with my partners in the bottoms, and that's where everything just started going. I started selling dope, hanging out late nights. You know, I only live with my grandmama, so you know she just let me do what I do.
Right. And now I think both of us realize now that we're older, um, supervision was definitely better. I feel the same way, man. When I started selling dope, my dad, he used to come to the block, try to chase me off. But once I got 18, he just kind of told me to be careful. There was 1,000 times that I wish that he had continued to stay on me, the same way he did when I was 14 and 15. But so I wanted to ask you, because you grew up in the era of, I like to refer to it as traditional gang banging, when it was a lot
Yeah,
of colors being, you could tell who was a blood by the colors they wore. You could tell who was a Crip by the colors they wore, if in fact you didn't know them. So what was it like back then, when people was set tripping and
back back then back then it actually meant something to us. You
right.
know, it wasn't about it wasn't no fad. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't our dance was sacred. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't no
Most
YouTube.
definitely.
It wasn't no YouTube dance. It wasn't no TikTok dance. It wasn't something that everybody should know about. You know that the suit whoop was a sacred thing. When you said that, it really meant something.
Right.
You know, it wasn't no game. It wasn't. You don't go around just teaching people how to throw up your hood and stuff like that because it was sacred. It really meant something to us. When you
Right.
go to that county jail, you stuck in there by yourself. Back then, it was hard. It was hard being a blood. It was hard. You go in that county jail, you might go to the tank and it's 6 Crips, 6, 7 Crips, and you the only person up in there. You know, you don't turn around and tell the sheriff that you a blood can't go in the tank. You got to go up in there. Only reason why the Crips know you a blood because you go in there, you the quietest person in there.
Right.
Until they come over there and hit you up. Where you from? Man, I'm from Inglewood family. We got to get a, my main hood we was getting into it was the 60s. As long as there wasn't no 60s in the tank, I was basically all right. Mm-hmm. But you see them 60s come up, them 6-0s come up in there, they're not playing. They want that.
Right. They definitely wanted to, for those of you guys not familiar with the terminology, they want that. They wanted to fade. They wanted to fight. You was gonna have to basically fight however many you ran across.
Exactly.
Right. Now, and you say it was much more difficult back then being a blood. Can you explain why a little bit?
We were outnumbered 5-1. Everywhere you go, we was outnumbered 5-1. We walk on lines by ourselves. Right. When I came up, we were shooters. Don't get me wrong, but we was also taught to fight. Right. We had to respect our OG homies or the homies. The OGs was gonna get in our asses. Nowadays, ain't nobody respecting them G's because G's don't even care. Basically, we don't even care.
Yeah,
it's like we done outgrown that. But back then, nah, because it meant something to them too. They was teaching us how to do this. They was teaching us it ain't all about tearing up your neighborhood too. It ain't all about looking like a fool. It ain't all about looking like a fool to the elderly. You got to respect your blocks. You got to respect the people on your blocks. If you walk around and see some old lady with some bags and stuff, can't get them out that car, you still got to help them. That's your hood. I used to go up to the park. I was an artist. I'm a real graphite artist. I didn't even know, but I used to go up to the park and hit up. And the guy at the park name was Ben at Darby Park. And he used to tell me, man, this is your park. This is Inglewood Family Park. Why are you tearing it up? It was people like that. And he wasn't no gang member. He just knew what was up. He knew everybody around there by first and last name.
And that's real deep that you say that, right? Because I see a lot of people from our generation, they always talk about and elaborate on it was a family growing up. And I think a lot of people fail to realize, like you say, before the social media stuff and the influence of YouTube and stuff, people started, well, we didn't start gang banging because it was a thing to do, like you mentioned. We grew up as friends first. We all grew up with each other. And then it was something that we gradually got into later on. But like you said, that was our community. You grew up, the lady down the street who need help with the groceries. That was, that could have been your friend's mom, your grandmom. Exactly. So we had respect. And, I think a lot of us eased into gang banging and turned gang members before we even realized it ourselves, because it's just what everybody, or not everybody, but it's what some people in the community are doing. And we just transition,
If you grew up back then, you really didn't even get put on. You didn't get put on in probably like 2-3 years later, when they just noticed you just hanging out too much. Like, man, can you squabble? Right. You know what I'm saying? And you didn't been through all type of fights. You been through everything. You didn't shot and did all type of stuff. And then all of a sudden, it's this day you just come with it's time to put on. Like, man, I've been doing this for like the last 2-3 years. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
But because it was a real family.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It wasn't about, like you said, it was we were really brothers. We were homies. We were friends. We spent a night over each other's house, ate mama's cooking. Sometimes mama's made you spend a night. Then you had to go downtown LA and feed the homeless. We had to go to church. Sometimes you spend a night over your homie house, and then next thing you know is mama waking you up to go to church.
Right. I had an aunt like that, and we spent the night over there. We'd have to go to church. Then eventually she had her own church in one of her rooms. She created a church. She had a big old room. And so on Saturdays, we'd spend the night on Fridays. Because if you spent the night on Saturday, you definitely was waking up on Sunday, going to church.
You're right.
About what age did you find yourself, in this trouble that eventually led you to the penitentiary and stuff?
At the age of 18, I was kind of like lucky and smart, because my pops, before I left, he always installed jobs. So I always had a job. I had a, small job, stuff like that, but I always had something to do with myself, like basically my time. I had a job, somewhat small job, but I was still selling dope. I was still messing up. So about 18 years old, I started really messing up in the streets, and grandma was like, well, you You messing up so much. You got to get the hell up out of here or go get a job. So I had to get a job just to show myself working. Back then we had GR. You can go get on GR and get the GR check, and they'll give you a paper to go sign off saying you're looking for a job. You know, or they'll have you working at the park or something like that. You know, and I didn't even or the school or something like that.
Right. And then so eventually you found yourself caught up where you was facing a life sentence.
Eventually I start messing up, then start selling drugs. From selling drugs, I wanted to expand. So we start going to little other cities. I went out to a little town, Bakersfield, and that's how I got caught up.
So your case was occurred in Bakersfield.
Yeah, my case got caught up in Bakersfield. Went to a small town, and you know, sometimes when you go to small towns, man, we kind of live a little bit faster. So the things they was doing, you know, was not like, it was like, come on, man. You know, and it makes it easier for you to do the stupid things you can because you're dealing with people that's actually behind you.
Right.
You know, it's not that they behind me. It's not that it was just a little bit slower in the game than we were. You know, we were
slower in what you were used to in Los Angeles.
Exactly.
But then, you know, real quick, shout out to Bakersfield, because when I was locked up in Delano, I used to see the news. Actually, it would show Delano and Fresno, and those cities was extremely wild and crazy, man. And you know, they were active. This was later on in probably 2005, 2006. But
they manifested even back then. They was they was starting to get a little rowdy. Even back then. So yeah, I got to give a shout out to Bakersfield because they was doing their thing. You know what I'm saying? We was just a little bit faster, so it was a little bit more. It was basically a little bit more target practice for us.
Right. And so now you locked up in Bakersfield, and you facing a charge that could possibly send you to prison for life or a long time. Well, how much did they tell you that you was initially facing?
I was facing 30 to life. That was my deal. You know, 30 to life.
Right.
And I wouldn't take the 30 to life. I'm talking about taking the trial, but I'm in court being stupid. You know what I'm saying? I'm in court talking and throwing up gang signs to the people inside the audience and all type of stuff. I'm in Laredo County Jail getting into it with the Northern Hispanics and stuff like that. And that was before the Bulldogs and the Northerns and the Bulldogs had separated. See, in the pod I had to be in the blood pod with the Northerners and, you know, white boys and people non-affiliates. So I'm in there getting into it with the Northerners because they feel like they can just punk the blacks. You know, and where I come from in our county jail, it's not happening. So, you know, the first incident I had was over Soul Train. You know, and if you hear some LA County stories, they'll tell you, man, that'd be the biggest incidents. Right. They can't turn that Soul Train, man. So, you know, I let it go the first Saturday. They turned Soul Train. I let it go because I had to see what I was working with up in there. I'm like, man, I ain't even got no homies up in here. You know what I'm saying? Everybody up in there is on drugs. So, you know, I'm up in there. I'm young. So I'm like, okay, I got a trick for them. You know, I went and bought a gang of canteen. I went and bought a gang of honey buns and chocolate and gave it to these dope fiends. The dudes was in there smoking dope. Gave them the dope fiends in there. I tried to get some strength up out of them. Right. You know, I had a little partner from Fresno named Boogie. He was up in there with me. You know, I had a couple of youngsters. It's like maybe like 3 of us all together. So, you know, but we needed some more backup. So I planned it out. You know, start giving it. I went to canteen, bought a gang of junk food, and started giving it, build up their strength. So one of the brothers was like, "Hey, man, we got you." So that next week, sat up under the TV, watching the TV. Northern came over there, man, and turned the channel. And it went on from there. Yeah. It went on from there. We took flight. We dusted their ass off, though. You know, them old heads came out, they came out of retirement quick, man. Yeah. They had the strength, and, you know, they like the youngsters spending money on us, man. We don't want this youngster to leave. So, you know what I'm saying? Them old dudes was putting in work, man. So, you know what I'm saying? You got to respect them OGs, man. They came back. They put in work. It was like, you know, so we had 5 pods, so they kept bouncing me to the next pod. So, you know, I'm unfamiliar with it. And, you know, I start seeing them little kites. And then the old school told me in the next pod, he's like, bro, When them Northerners send that kite up under there, man, that's gonna be about you. So you got to handle your business every time you see them go to that door.
Yeah.
You know. So every time I seen one of them dudes go to that door, when I go to a pod, as soon as I see him grab that kite, I just take off. I end up going to 3 pods, and they end up sending me to the crypt. They sent me to the hole, let me out the hole, and sent me to the crypt pod.
Uh-huh.
So when I get in the crypt pod and get up early in the morning, the crypts was looking at me like, what I'm saying, man, ain't you the, you just caught this case, man, ain't you that dude just caught that blood dude just caught? I said, yeah, man. They're like, oh man, we ain't tripping. You got bigger things to do. You know what I'm saying? Basically fighting, man. You fighting the case, man. You got bigger things. We ain't tripping on you, man. We ain't with all that, man. We cool. We ain't even tripping on you, man. Them dudes didn't even trip on me, man.
Because Bakersfield, especially probably back then, was more a Crip dominant city, huh?
Yeah. You had the east side, the west side, you had the country boys, you had that Spoonie G's, everybody out there. But I was cool with a lot of them dudes, man. The brother that was kind of like living in my house, he was from he was living with my girlfriend at that time and her sister. He was living with us. You know what I'm saying? Sleeping right on the couch.
Uh-huh.
He was from the east side, so he was a cool dude. And I never really had no problems out there. It's just, I had one situation on one person and it just escalated from there.
Right. And so I'm assuming that you end up going to trial and you lost in trial, or did you end up taking a deal? Or
no, I ended up going to trial. Got judged by, the jury of my peers. You know what I'm saying? And
right.
They ended up giving me 29 to life. Yep.
And so you was convicted and then sent to the 4-yard, huh?
I was convicted, sent on a bus. They sent me to Wasco as a reception yard. From Wasco, they sent me to Calipatria. I went to Calipatria D yard.
So what year did you hit Calipat, and what was that like?
I hit Calipat in the beginning of the early beginning of 1994. I left in 93. I hit it like in 94.
So what was that like when you got down there?
Man, it was a sight to see, because I walked in there and I was in the cell, and I was on an orientation row, and I seen some Southsiders, man, run up in a brother's cell, and I seen another brother run out the cell, and they went up in there and stabbed some brothers up. That's the day they took the day room from Calipatria. The first day I came up in there on orientation, and I think I was on orientation. I was on orientation, but I had a couple of my older homies come up, basically screaming. You know what I'm saying? Hey, man, look, hey, man, is there a G Slim up in here? I come up to the door and they look up. They was like, you know me? And yeah, I know you, bro. You know what I'm saying? What's up? And he's like, man, let me come upstairs and see who it is. And, they come, oh, what's up, little homie? I ran across a couple of good dudes. But that first week on orientation, I actually seen that happen. Because at the cell I was in was right before the tower, like in the 42 range or something like that. I was on the 16 side, the A side. So I was able to look down in that cell, and I just happened to be standing at the door when it happened.
And I was going to ask you, what was that like, to see something like that the first day you hit prison, or the first day you hit Calipat or whatever? Did it make you realize, okay, damn, I'm in the big league now, or what was your thoughts?
Yeah, that made me realize, man, I am in prison, and I better get it together. I had an older seller. He was from out of Lincoln Park. He was a blood out of Lincoln Park, San Diego. And he was like, this is like his second term. So he was like, this ain't no joke. This ain't no joke, youngster. You here now. You got to get your weight up. You here now.
Now, as far as was there any response or reply to the brother being stabbed by the Southsiders, or?
There was more reply on the brother that ran. Than the reply of the brother that got stabbed.
Right.
Things did happen. Things transpired that I didn't get involved in, because back then when you was A2B, you wasn't coming out the cell, period.
Right.
So I was A2B and couldn't come out the cell. and plus I was younger, and I really didn't get to see anything until they actually finally opened up the yard. When they opened up the yard, I got to understand what was going on and what that whole little situation was about. But they was more concerned on the brother that ran out. That's what they were concerned about.
And so what's that like, when you get to the pen, you get to a level 4, for those of you guys who may not know, the penitentiary is CALIPATRIA, but a lot of times it's referred to CALIPAT. It's an extremely dangerous level 4. But what is it like when you get there and you see some people that some people that you grew up with?
Well, when I got there, I seen like 1 or 2 people that I knew that I actually like been on the streets with. The rest of them were associates. A couple of my homies, my older homies from family swans and stuff like that. It was older homies that knew my homies. You know what I'm saying? They did background checks when they found out I was on the yard. I had a couple of brothers from my hood that was there. Like, yeah, we called the hood. You know what I'm saying? You here.
Yeah.
You here, we got you. You know what I'm saying? So I was blessed to be around some solid dudes, because back then it was like they would rather teach you than break you down. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't about breaking you down. It was about teaching you. So back then, those homies taught.
Right.
Those homies really taught you how to be, you know what I'm saying? Without them dudes, I wouldn't have been a man. They taught you how to be a man. They basically teach you how to piss right. Wipe your ass right and stuff like that. They taught you to read. The importance of reading. They taught you the importance of history. Why? Why you a blood? You know what I'm saying? They ask you them type of questions. You know what I'm saying? Who is you? Why should you be a part of this?
Right.
Why should we accept you? We heard about you on the streets. Okay, you got a good trigger finger. You kind of straight too. But what can you do up in here? You ain't got no gun up in here. You're skinny as hell. That's why they call you G Slim. You bone thin, man. You probably like 120 pounds soaking wet. So what you gonna do up in here? Do you got any squabbles? You know what I'm saying? I was always first to be there, though. First to be there. First to initiate. First to do everything.
Well, it was
out of fear.
It was more like a training ground of education, of knife making, how to do time, all that type of stuff.
It was a training ground for me of every bit of education that made me successful in doing 29 years.
Right.
It was the best education of my life, because every yard I hit, I took a little bit from that yard and brought it to the next yard. It's like I adapted people's personalities. Good leaders, I adapted their personalities.
Who was when you first got there? Who was some of your mentors? You said, people that taught you stuff and just taught you how to, jail, as we call it, and just basically survive. Who was some of the people that gave you good information?
I had a big homie named Ragtime. Big homie. That was big homie. Ragtime. Always been fair. He hated punks. You know what I'm saying? He didn't like no busters. Always been, and gave everybody a chance.
Right.
A lot of people hate him, but a lot of people love him. You know what I'm saying? But they hate him. A lot of people feared him too. He's a good mentor, man. He was a good teacher.
And let me ask you a question about this, because this, when I first came to the pen, you know how a lot of us, we run with certain collectors, whether it's Crips, Bloods, whoever we associate ourselves with. And I was always taught that if you running with your homie and he do something, never support wrong, never support him being wrong unless it gets physical right then and there. But outside of that, you gotta let him know when he's wrong, because it not only involves him, it involves everybody that runs with him. How was, and the dude you were just talking about, Ragtime, he reminds me of one of those individuals. So how was you schooled on the nature of functioning within, the collective?
He was a brother that always believed in is bigger than you. You know what I'm saying? What you do reflects on all of us. The slightest mistake you make can reflect all of us. You make one little mistake and it can get people hurt way on another yard, because it'll give you the ripple effect. You the pebble that get thrown in the water when you mess up.
Right.
You're a pebble. And the ripple effect of what you did carries on and carries on. So he always been taught me to be careful what I do, what I say, how I say it, when I say it. You know, just be careful and cautious because it's always bigger than you.
One thing I noticed about the later years in doing time, you had less people that was like that, man. It got to a point when people started to support their homie when they was doing wrong, and just it was just a whole lot of stuff because people didn't want to follow the guidelines and rules and protocols that people were following when I first came. So when after that first time when the brother got assaulted or stabbed or whatever, when was the next thing that you saw, man, that made you, kind of shocked you or whatever?
Next thing I saw was a riot that happened. It started over a brother in the kitchen. It was kind of a slow Mexican. A slow Mexican did something to another brother, man. So one of the blacks, which was my homeboy, wanted some repercussions out of what happened. So he went to work the next day and just went on ahead and mollywop one of them. Like, you know what I'm saying? This happened in the kitchen. When I go back in, this is what I'm about to do. So he went and did what he wanted to do. You know what I'm saying? After that incident happened, it came back on the yard that, you know what I'm saying, once they come out, it's on. It's on and cracking. Between the blacks and them, it was really, the word was between the Bloods and the Mexicans. And, you know, back then, the Southsiders, they said, we want all the Bloods. We don't want no Bloods on this yard no more, period. So what happened? Somebody formed up a plan and early in the morning, and the whole Southsider car got attacked by Work Exchange. It was probably one of the biggest demonstrations I ever seen. I ain't never seen something so viciously planned in my life. You know, it was scary. It was one of the most scariest moments, and everybody think they well prepared for something like that, but you will freeze. You know, don't think you all think it's all fine and dandy. I froze like a deer caught in the headlights, shaking in my boot. I was scared as hell. You know, I came out there ready to play though. But when the action started, I was scared as hell.
Yeah.
And that big ragtime pushed me. Go on out there, go. You know what I'm saying? I was pushed into action.
Right.
Because I choked. I was scared. When it cracked off, I was sitting there holding and what the hell? You know what I'm saying? I heard that first gunshot, and then I went to work. You know what I'm saying? It was a whole free fall. It was like a battle royal. It was like watching the WrestleMania and everybody just coming, all the wrestlers just coming in the ring at one time. You know, I must admit the brothers did their thing. Brothers did their thing, and after that, it was bits and pieces of retaliation. So it happened in building. It was just retaliation after retaliation. They'd come get one black, one building, next building, they might get another black, but you couldn't get no get back. And my incident was the last incident. It was, we made it. I was in 4 building, and they made it all the way to 4 building. They got the bottom tier first. Brother came out. My homies went out there. They tried to get him on the track, going to chow. And then my incident came up like 3 days later. They tried to implement the program of walking the chow again. So we make it in the chow hall, and I'm sitting at the table, and it was an Indian brother. He tapped my leg and said, "Watch out." But mind you, the night before this, I hear the Mexicans next door. I hear one of their porters walk around and tell his neighbor next door, like, "Yeah, we gonna get these dudes next door." So I tell my celly, like, "Hey, man, this dude just said he gonna get us." But my celly, like, "Man, they speaking in Spanish. You don't know what you're talking about." I said, "I'm telling you, man, that's what they said, man." He's like, "Man, they speaking in Spanish. You tripping. You just scared, man. You young. You just scared, man. You know what I'm saying? That's why I don't like these scary young dudes in my cell. You just scared." I'm like, "All right, whatever." Man, we go out the next morning, go to chow. The Indian dude tapped me on my leg, say, "Watch out." Man, I turn around, man. I see 3 Mexicans getting up, man. Me and the Mexican just locked up. We just in the chow hall, just locking up. Me and him. Middle of chow hall. The gun tower is right above my head. So you can hear the gun tower. Get down. Get down. And I look up, you know what I'm saying, and get back to fighting. You can hear him again. Get down. When he said get down, he clocked that mini 14. When he clocked that mini 14, you can hear one of the Crip dudes. I remember him too. He's like, G Slim, get down, bro. And I looked up. I looked at the gun tower, kind of bagged up a little bit, like, man, I can't get. I put my hands up like I can't get down. Then the Mexican came again. He wouldn't stop. So we locked up again. And when I looked up, when I seen that mini guy point that gun like that, and I grabbed that Mexican and grabbed him and jumped on him and put my legs around him and put all my weight back and let him fall on top of me. And they shot the Mexican right in the back 2 times.
They shot him right when he was on top of you?
Shot him right in the back twice.
Wow.
I held on to him as tight as I can and shot, and all I can hear is the Mexican trying to push up, like, let me go, let me go, let me go, let me go. You know what I'm saying? So, I ended up letting him go and kicked him up off me, and my dumb butt, instead of looking around, I pushed, we on the ground, so I jump up and try to push in the corner. Here it is. I push in a corner full of Mexicans. So now I'm getting kicked by a bunch of Mexicans now, and police came, they rushed the chow hall, broke it up, sent us to the MTAs and all that stuff. And that was that was basically like my second ride at that time. So
what year was that? And do you know what happened to the Hispanic that got shot?
No, as far as I know, I don't know what happened to the Hispanic I got shot. That was 1995.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that was 1995. They sent me to the hole for a couple of months. And the cold part about it, only thing the police wanted to know if it was a justifiable shooting.
And what yard that occurred on?
That occurred on D yard. That was the end of the whole ride. My incident was the end of the whole ride.
And so before you said the Southsiders said they just wanted the Bloods. So did the Crips get involved, or
the Crips did get involved. The Crips wouldn't, because it was a black thing. So
right.
A lot of Crips wasn't taking that. You know what I'm saying? They said, okay, we heard what y'all said. You know what I'm saying? And that's y'all beef. We get it.
Right.
A lot of Crips, that's y'all beef. We get it. But a lot of it's like, yeah, okay, you try it if you want to. You know what I'm saying? You try it if you want to. So a lot of Crips was getting involved in it too. They was taxing too. They killed the brother from matter of fact, that's another incident I seen. They killed the brother named Tim, man, right before he went, like a week before he went home, because he was fighting in the day room.
The Southsiders killed him, or the police?
No, the police. The police in Calipat, the police had a bad habit of shooting people head first. They had a bad habit, man, of shooting head first. They was shooting for your head. They wasn't trying to harm. They wasn't trying to shoot you for the legs, anything like that. They had a bad habit of shooting for that head. And they was good at it because they practice range. They used to shoot apples. So shooting the head wasn't nothing, especially the black head.
And so do you know about this brother Tim? Was he gang affiliated?
No, he was from one of the one of the up north towns. I think he was like from Sacramento. I believe, I can't remember, but I think he was like from Sacramento. But I remember meeting him on the yard. That's right. How you just brought back what happened in that building. I remember meeting him on the yard. He was cool, and I remember telling him he was about to go home. You know what I'm saying? And he was fighting. He was fighting in the day room, man. And the police shot him.
So was he fighting another brother, or
he was fighting another brother? Yep, and the police shot him, man. Yep. I remember. I was in another building though, but I remember that incident happened.
Right.
Yeah. But I went to the hole after the incident I had in the kitchen, and they kept bringing me. The police kept bringing me in there. Bring me in there. So me, this whole time, I'm like, man, I don't talk to no police. That's snitching. And they like, man, they just want to know, was it justifiable? So, mind you, everybody on D yard that was a blood, they damn near all in the whole ragtime, everybody. So they write me a kite, like what they keep saying. I'm like, man, they just asking it's a justifiable shooting. So they like, we go to the yard. Matter of fact, we on the yard in the shoe yard. We working out and stuff. And it's like, man, if you tell it's justifiable shooting, they gonna go ahead and let you out the hole. That ain't nothing. I said, that ain't nothing. He's like, nah, just tell them justifiable shooting. You ain't got no case. You ain't got nothing. You're justifiable. I was like, oh, okay, fuck it. They called me back in there a couple of days later. Hey, man, it was justifiable. Oh, it's justifiable. They was like, all right, Mitchell, we're going to kick you out the hole now. So they kicked me out the hole and sent me to A yard.
Right.
Now, mind you, I'm on A yard now. And I think I was in education. They put me in education, got a job, adapted to the yard. I don't know what the incident was about, but I had walked in the school, man, and we used to smoke weed in the school, in the bathrooms. Walked in the school, so one of my crip partners, man, we all partners. He was like, hey, man, hit this once, then you need to get back to your building. I said, nah, man, we just don't break. I got to go back. He's like, hit this once and get back to your building. Say you got to go back to the building. I ain't catching on, man. I ain't tripping on that. Let me hit the weed, man. He's like, hit it once and then get your ass back to the building. So I'm like, so the other crip partner like, look, Slim, go back to the building. We about to handle some business. I said, oh, okay, I'll get it now. So I get in there, I hit and then instead of going back to the class after break, I walk across the track. As soon as I walk across the track, them brothers ran up in that they ran up in that program office. And they beat they got in their ass.
So when you say them brothers ran up in the program office, are you referring to the incident where the East Coast Crips took off on the police and sergeants and all that stuff?
Yes, I am. I sat there. I sat there on the track. I was on the track with the track. Within 5 feet is the grass. I'm within 5 feet because I had just crossed the grass when they I turned around and looked, and they was running up in there. I seen the captain and the lieutenant running the little package part of the room, closed the door, and was looking out the window, watching his staff get the crap beat out of him.
So go ahead. Yeah,
I was sitting there watching them. I watched a female sergeant. She was getting beat up. Her name was Sergeant Rum. I watched her getting beat up. She was getting mopped up pretty good. And I watched the big old fat police. He was getting sliced up. They was handling their business. Whether what the incident was about or what it was for, I don't know. But I was there watching it. I was sitting right there. I got cuffed up and put in the cage because I was laughing. After the incident, when the ambulance and this shit came, I'm sitting there. I'm young, stupid. So I'm sitting there laughing, but I'm laughing loud. You know what I'm saying? I'm mocking them and laughing at how they was acting and calling them scary and all that. And they came and scooped my ass up and hog-tied me and threw me in the tank. Like, get your little punk ass in the tank.
And so for everybody who doesn't know, in the California prison system, that was a very, very famous, well-known attack that the East Coast Crips put down on the staff for whatever reason. From what I heard, it was the staff had been running around there basically mistreating people or whatever, and they mistreated the East Coast Crip, and they wasn't having it. But yeah, that's a very, very famous incident in the California prison system.
Yeah. Yep.
And so what happened when they hog-tied you or whatever and did what they did with you? Did they assault you and all that type of stuff?
I ain't gonna. No, they didn't assault me. They just, you know what I'm saying. Basically, I was running my mouth. You know what I'm saying. They really didn't have no time to be playing with my little nonsense. So they, you know what I'm saying. After a couple of hours being hog-tied, sitting in the little ass cage, they left me in there for about 5 hours though. And sent me back to my cell. And then
and if my understanding is right of that incident, after that incident occurred, they shipped all the East Coast Crips out of that prison. Even the East Coast Crips who were on other yards, they shipped them all out of there. If my understanding is correct,
Even they cellies. Now you ask some East Coast Crips that was cool with, maybe some dudes that was Bloods, but they just didn't have it on their file, but they was actually gang members. They even shipped them. They put a tag on them and shipped them too.
Right.
Well, everybody. But after that incident, because I I only stayed there for about maybe a month after that, and I transferred and went to Centinela, where they brought some of the East Coast Crips, and that's where they cut. They beat them. They beat them in the tanks at Centinela State Prison.
Right. And then to my understanding, I had a good friend who was in Calipat when that happened. He wasn't on that particular yard, but he was on another yard. But he said they all still, a lot of them, they got shipped out. They sent them to the hole. They beat them up real bad, dogged them in the hole. They end up filing a class action lawsuit, actually.
Yeah.
And a lot of them end up getting a lot of money.
And they cut their hair off too.
Yeah, they cut their hair. They dogged them. It was about 13, 14 of them. I don't know how many of them exactly it was, but I remember my friend telling me the story, and he said, yeah, the police beat them up real bad for that. Even the ones who wasn't involved in the actual actual attack, but they ended up later on filing a class action lawsuit, and all of them got a lot of money. And so when you went to Centinela, was it wild there? Was that a level 4? And it was what happened there that was extremely shocking to you, or
Centinela was the exact that, because they only had 1 4 yard, so that was the exact same thing. It wasn't no different. You get on there, it's bunch of wild youngsters. Everybody was wild. We had a small ride with the Southsiders. Really, with the Pisces, beat the Pisces up. At a little small, but the biggest thing that happens when they shut the yard down was I had went to the hole. I had a staff assault. I went to the hole for firing on the staff. I fired on the staff and tried to take me down. I fired on him, and I went to the hole for a couple of months, for like 90 days, and I went to the hole, got out, and there was a white sergeant in the hole that used to talk a gang of crap to this white boy, man. He used to talk gang shit, and the white boy told him, he's like, you let me out this hole, I'm gonna get you. Let me out this hole, I'm gonna get you. His name was Rooster. It was a white boy named Rooster. He said, you let me out this hole, I'm gonna get you. So, the crazy part is they let us all out the hole together. They let me, Rooster, the white boy Rooster, and a couple of other brothers out the hole. So we all on the chain walking back, and that sergeant is walking with him. Mm-hmm. And Rooster's telling him, hey, when we get over here, he's like, when we get over here, I'm going to fuck you up. I'm going to get you. Punk motherfucker, I'm going to get you. When we get over here, I'm going to get you. So we walk back. So now I'm on the yard for like maybe a week. And they're releasing child. Early in the morning, they're releasing child, man. I happen to be looking up, and I see the sergeant. I'm on the bottom tier, and we standing by the door. You got to come out, stand by the door. The whole tier stands out. And then after the whole tier stands out and all the doors closed, you can walk the child. So I'm on the bottom tier, and the white boy Rooster's on the top tier. I'm at the far beginning of the numbers of the cells. I'm in 105 actually, and Rooster's all the way in the corner. So they released the top tier first. Rooster walked. Now, mind you, it's the same sergeant, right, sitting at the podium. Rooster walked downstairs, and I don't know how he made it behind. I'm sitting there watching. I don't know how he made it behind that sergeant, but he walked down there. He stabbed that sergeant like 5 times. Rooster tore his ass up. Like he had him like 5 times. Had him hollering, crying, and all type of stuff. But we didn't make it. We didn't even make it to child, so they just put the whole day room down. They grabbed Rooster, threw him in a rotunda, and they beat. You can hear they beat Rooster. They beat that white boy ass. They beat him. Right, because now they got a maybe about a month or 2 ago. I've seen a channel they got by a former prison guard. I believe he ended up making it up to lieutenant, and he talks about how which I know in my experience to be different, but he talks about there was never any assaults or retribution on convicts for assaulting staff. So what about in your experience? How was it if a person assaulted staff? My experience, I got kicked in the mouth when I assaulted the staff. I got into it with the staff. He was like big old white. He's like 250 pounds. Mind you, I'm like 125. I probably didn't gain a little weight by then. So I'm like, baby, 130 pounds.
Right.
You know? And I was coming back from school, man, and he talked. He was hot, you know, Sentinella hot, man. I'm like, man, I want to go in the building. He's like, man, you already had your unlock. You sitting out there lollygagging. I'm like, I want to, you know, I want to go in the building. So he said something smart. I said something smart. You know, he challenged me. I challenged him. Like, man, you know, basically I got a bad mouth, man. I'll fuck you up, dude. He looked at me like, you know, and then he just stuck his chest out and hopped. So I just fired on him. Man, that big old dude, you know, took me down. right when he took me, you know, he took me down, bam, you know, because he's a big old dude. He took me down, slammed me like a little rag doll, you know. But he had me down on the ground. But when he got me down on the ground with his knee in his back, I'm already restrained and everything. The police run from a whole nother building, man, full force, and kicked me dead in my face. Mm-hmm. So when they put me in the chair, I'm in the chair, mouth busted, everything, man. And actually the big dude, the police, man, after he seen me, he's like, bro, I didn't even mean for that to happen, man. You know, the dude that did it, man, I had to talk with him, man. That right there, he's like, man, I didn't mean for that to happen.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That was between me and you. You know, you was already, I didn't mean for that to happen because my face was all busted up. He lucky he didn't kick my teeth out, but he just busted my lip and all that, bust my lip and my nose. And I was like, damn. You know, I'm sitting in the chair cuffed up. You know, I'm straddled the chair, but I'm cuffed up. I'm down there in tears. Mm. You know, but yeah, I seen a couple of retaliations.
Right.
Seeing retaliations. I seen a lot of retaliations in the hole.
Yeah, because during the time I came to the pen, it was well known if you hit the staff once, you might as well hit them 1,000 times because when you get to where you're going, they gonna dog you out. And I had a cellie tell me exactly that. He told me that he had caught on a staff assault. I believe it was in Lancaster, and wherever they sent him to the hole, he said the police ran in there one night around 2 or 3 in the morning. He said about 4 or 5 of them and beat him. He said till he cried. He said they broke a few of his ribs. He said they beat him real bad till he was crying in there.
Yeah, they in Sentinella, after I got out the hole for that staff assault, they moved me within 3 days to 5 cells. They was coming to my cell at 2 o'clock in the morning talking about pack your stuff, you moving. Pack your stuff, you moving. Pack your stuff, you moving. And until they finally thought they was doing something slick, they moved me in the cell with a brother named Baby Shady from Hoover. And Baby Shady had a reputation for beating up cellies. Uh-huh. So they moved me in the cell with Baby Shady from Hoover. So I'm sitting in the day room. So I guess he didn't beat up his celly. So his celly packing his stuff. Baby Shady on the yard. You know, celly packing his stuff. So his celly come downstairs like, you know, this is a Crip cell. And I'm like, man, I don't care. So I guess one of the Crips heard him, went back to the yard and told Baby Shady. So Baby Shady come in, you know, hey, what's your name? I'm like, I'm G Slim from Inglewood family. He like, I'm Baby Shady from Hoover. I'm like, all right. So he's like, hey, what that dude say? I said, man, he told me it was a Crip cell, man, and I can't come up in there. He's like, all right. He's like, stay right here. So Baby Shady went up there, closed the door, beat the dude up again. he whooped dude ass again, man. So they end up moving me up in the cell. You know, Baby Shady said, I'm going to go take a shower. He go take a shower, come back in. We end up talking and like, yeah, I grew up on 81st in New Hampshire. He's like, what? And I'm like, yeah, my name. He's like, so he asked me what my name is. And I'm like, you know, I tell him my name. My name's Joel Mitchell. And he just looked at me. He's like, man, you don't remember me? I'm like, nah. He told me his name and he was like, JoJo, man, you don't remember me? I'm like, nah. He's like, damn, man, we went to elementary together. You know, so we end up being childhood friends when I was living on 81st in New Hampshire.
Wow.
So we end up being childhood friends, man. He called his mama like, yeah, you know, Joe, his mama and my auntie was real close friends, all that stuff. So, you know, whatever the police thought they was doing, it was another form of retaliation.
Right. And that's,
fired.
And that's why they was moving you from cell to cell, just called themselves just messing with you, harassing.
Yeah, they was trying to find somebody, but every cell I go in, wasn't nobody biting into it. And Shady wasn't that type. Matter of fact, you know, he was a real dedicated Muslim. You know what I'm saying? It was just, he was known as Baby Shady. He was the original Baby. He's the original Baby. You know what I'm saying? He started them Babies. So when I moved in the cell with him, he was a devout Muslim though. He wasn't on that. He was really on his blackness. You know what I'm saying? But he was still known as Baby Shady.
Niggas say something. We was out there post, slid it through. Niggas say something. You from over there, stay over there before we change one. I just said for 6, you gave me 2, now I got 8 of them. I hate niggas that post and be in person trying to play dumb. Hate niggas that be on all them passes but ain't take none. Just chop a cannibal, it like to eat and it just ate something. No, you can't come. Told you only pose up in this Lola, bro. You can't come. Told you everybody know my name, don't have to say none. Told you cut on chip and pistol whip, these niggas hate guns. This chopper cannibal, it like to eat and it just ate something. Catch me a little op and he in sandals, where you running to? I just found 2 bitches, hard to choose, but I need one of you. Nigga, what? Bro told me it's static in the section, OMW. Bro told me it's passes in the section, give me one of them. Called me a little oppie in the section, what you running from? Nigga, what? Spot me a little Johnny in the section, put Poe under some Balenciaga steppers, I'ma fully put bro under him. Wonder how more Tiny play with fire, but he still thunder them. Told you it get bad if they don't label me as number 1. Bro just said about ATM, don't link the shit, ain't none to us. Bro just said about Jack, shit get cracking, that's my number 1. Hey. Chink, bleeder, I froze them. Sliding through they block, they mistaking me for Frozone. Tryna slide with me? Hold on. Did it by myself, I ain't that nigga till get told on. Spend the night, that's a no-go. My bitch be tweaking so she see me put my coat on. Come get your bro before he get stolen. Whipped out his pole, we sunk them way above the ozone. Chink, bleeder, I froze them. Sliding through they block, they mistaking me for Frozone. You tryna slide with me? Hold on. Did it by myself, I ain't the nigga to get told on. Spend the night, that's a no-go. My bitch be tweaking so she see me put my coat on. Come get your bro before he get stolen. Whipped out his pole, we sunk them way above the ozone. Niggas say something. We was out there post, slid it through. Niggas say something. You from over there, stay over there before we change one. I just said for 6, you gave me 2, now I got 8 of them. Nigga, what? I hate niggas that post and be in person trying to play dumb. Hate niggas that be on all them passes but ain't take none. Just chop a cannibal, it like to eat and it just ate something. Oh, you can't come. Told you only pose up in this Lola, bro. You can't come. Told you everybody know my name, don't have to say none. Told you cut on chip, pistol whip, these niggas hate guns.